Morning, welcome to my studio. I'm going to spend today dealing with a question that I got in the comments section on the YouTube channel this morning, and that's from Lori, who was saying that she has a lot of trouble starting paintings because of procrastination, and that she also has trouble finishing paintings because of the fear of screwing it up, and asking me if I've had to deal with that and what my solutions are. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So if this is something that you have an issue with, stick around and I'll just tell you what's worked for me. So that first part of the question is that whole procrastination about getting started. And I think both the procrastination about getting started and also that trouble finishing both have to do with a fear or anxiety of failing, of the painting not failing or of anything else kind of that you're doing kind of failing. And so I think I'm going to deal with that first. It's kind of like, if you're going to be an artist, if you want to get good at art, as a painter, sculptor, whatever, the thing you have to keep in mind is everybody, no matter what level they're at now, started as an absolute beginner at some point. And we all had a lot of failures on the way. We painted a lot of bad paintings. And I think that's part of the issue with the procrastination, is trying to find the perfect image that you're going to paint, or trying to find the perfect time about, okay, this Saturday I've got nothing else kind of interrupting my day. That's the day I'm going to paint, and kind of waiting for the perfect opportunity. And often what happens is we just wait and wait and wait and wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect image, where you feel the perfect inspiration, where now I'm motivated to go. And it either never happens or rarely happens, because you're so keyed up on, you want to do everything you can to give that opportunity for success. And that's kind of a failed way of thinking, and a problem way of thinking, because the perfect opportunity, the perfect time is never going to come. What you have is now, and you have the opportunity or the ability at any given time to say, now I'm going to start this painting, I'm going to draw in my sketchbook, I'm going to do whatever it is, and you just have to make the decision to do it. But that can be very, very difficult, because we get so caught up in the voices in our head. Now there's a really good motivational speaker out there by the name of Mel Robbins, who has found a way that's actually proven by neuroscience to kind of break that kind of self-talk that keeps us from starting, all of the reasons why we can't, and all of the things, the excuses we use to delay. And she's found that if we to interrupt that talk, you have to move the thought process to a different part of the brain. And it's as simple as counting backwards from 5 to 1. So that whole thing of saying, like I should get started on a painting. And I've had that too. You're sitting there in your chair, you're having your coffee, or you're watching TV, and like, yeah, I really should get started. And then 20 minutes goes by, and another 20 minutes goes by. And that can just kind of lead to you spending the whole day not getting started. What she has found is by kind of just basically saying, okay, I'm going to start painting now, and then saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and as soon as you hit 1, you basically jump up out of your chair and you go into the studio. And that kind of counting backwards interrupts that cycle of those thoughts that keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Now it sounds really silly, but when I saw this talk, I had this like epiphany about, oh my God, I used that once and it actually potentially saved my life. So this is going way back when I was a normie new guy on the police force. I think I was 21 years old, and we'd gotten a call to a disturbance. My partner and I got there, and we walked in, and there was one guy there who had been causing a problem, and he knew the police were coming and likely was going to be arrested. So we walked into the place, and the fellow's standing there, and he's got a beer bottle in his hand. That was the first thing I noticed. And I kind of walked up to him and just said, okay, you need to put the beer bottle down. And as I'm saying that, he brings his other hand out in front of him, and there's a lighter in the hand that's lit. And I notice there's a rag sticking out of the beer bottle, and he says, this is not a beer, this is a Molotov cocktail. And so you can imagine what went through my mind. And I was actually standing about 2.5 feet away from him, and his hands at that point were about a foot apart from each other. So I realized if this really is a Molotov cocktail this guy has in his hand, I'm in danger, serious danger of being burned really, really badly. And so what do? Like, I did not have my stick in my hand. I could not go to my gun faster than he could just light that rag. But I knew I had to do something. But how do you get yourself to move? Because I know, depending on what I'm going to do in the next few seconds, that's going to potentially severely impact my life or potentially end it. And I just realized I have to act. And so I thought, while I was talking to him, one half of my mind was talking to him, the other half was just saying, okay, I need to take my left hand and hit that hand with the bottle as hard as I can, and then just charge at this guy and take him down. And hopefully the bottle and the lighter are going to be separated. But if I just stand here, I'm giving him the opportunity to take charge of the situation. And if he decides he's going to burn, once he decides to put that lighter to the rag, I'm done. But I also knew that, like, how do you start? And so while I was talking to him, I said to myself, I'm going to count to 5 to 1. And when I hit 1, I'm moving. And so while I was talking to him, I actually in my head went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then immediately sprung into action. And like you got to imagine the adrenaline rush that was there. And at this point, I was about 235 pounds, mostly muscle. And I hit this guy with everything that I had, knocked the bottle out of his hand, took him down. We ended up arresting him. When we got back into the police station afterwards and they checked what was in there, it was actually a mix of lighter fluid and soap that was in the bottle, which is a homemade napalm. So there was huge potential danger there for me. But again, doing that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I just I don't know where it came from. I just knew if I stand here all day, this is not going to turn out good. But you can use that same sort of thing just to, when you're saying, I should start painting, you're sitting in your chair or you're whatever, and you're thinking, I should get in the studio and work. Just make a commitment with yourself that when that comes up, you're going to count from 5 to 1, you're going to get up and do it. And it helps, and it will allow you to do it. And I've actually used that a few times since I saw the video from Mel Robbins. So I'll put her name up there. Just Google her. She's got a number of talks on YouTube about this and about how that particular hack actually interrupts the kind of cycle in the brain of that procrastination. So that's kind of one thing you can do to get started. The other thing about starting is, again, you're starting because you're wanting to have the perfect outcome. And the bottom line is, there's no way to get to painting the good paintings without painting a lot of bad paintings. Because at the start, we all paint a lot of bad paintings, and you just have to think of it, you know what? I can't get to the good ones till I get the bad ones out of the way, so I may as well get started. And if this is a bad one, that's okay, because that's part of paying your dues. And you just go on to the next one. But yeah, if you wait for the perfect opportunity where everything is aligned, first of all, it may never happen, probably won't ever happen, and you'll just spend a lot of time dreaming about what you think you should be doing. The most important thing is just to do, just start and do. And then we get to finishing the paintings. Why is it so many people have fear of finishing the paintings? And it's fear of failure. It's a fear, especially when you've got a painting that, say, it's 80% done and it is turning out really, really good. Well, now you're afraid of screwing it up. And again, you have to ask yourself, why are you afraid of screwing it up? And it's because you look at failure as a hugely negative thing. So you would rather not even finish than contemplate the painting failing or you screwing it up. And you have to change your mindset around what a failure is. If you are petrified by the fear of failure, I can guarantee you, you probably won't advance very far as an artist, but it will also severely limit how far you go in life and what you achieve. Because if you show me somebody who has never ever taken a chance of failure, I'll show you someone who's set the bar very low and probably hasn't achieved very much. Because if you really challenge yourself and reach high, there are going to be failures. And that's just part of life. What you need to do, now I know Gary Vaynerchuk says he loves the losses or the failures. I don't love them, but I've made friends with them and I know they're going to happen. And when they happen, it's just like, oh yeah, I knew one was coming along sooner or later. Here's one here. Now the question is, what can I learn from this? And how can I take what happened here to give myself a better chance of succeeding down the road? So whether it's in an individual painting, whether it's in business, whatever, you have to know that failures are going to come and you can't be afraid of failing. And why are we afraid of failing? This is a real big one, because many of us really worry about what other people think. And whether it's our family, our loved ones, our friends, or just peers, or just the world in general, if you really, really place a lot of importance on what other people think, then that is really going to keep you from doing things where you have the chance of failing. I have a really good vlog post from way back about the fear of failure and how I kind of came across that one time and dealt with it. But you have to kind of separate what you think of other people and what they think about you into two different kind of things. On the one hand, yes, if you're going to be an artist and you want to sell your work, you do have to be aware and concerned of what people think of your work in general. Because if everybody hates your work or no one likes it, then you're not going to have a career. But at the same time, you have to not care at all what any individual person thinks about your work, or what any individual person thinks about you failing in the broader sense. And that's what I do. Now you may say, oh Tim, that's easy for you to say. You're a really successful artist. When do you ever have failures? Well, I always have them. There's always things that don't turn out as well as I want them to turn out. So you could say they're a failure. So one example is recently this spring, I had a show at the Chinese Cultural Center in Toronto, in Scarborough. Now I was approached by a friend of mine whose wife is Chinese, and they thought that there was a big market potentially within the Asian community for my work. So they approached me to do this show, and I said yes, I would do it. And they were looking after all of the promotion of the show. And in turn, they dealt with someone within the Chinese community who was very well connected to promote the show and book the gallery space. So it was like, oh, this could be great. So it's a great opportunity. I had already decided I was going to be moving away from gallery sales and doing more shows myself. So it's like, okay, let's try this. So this was probably the biggest show I'd ever had in terms of the most work. It was a beautiful gallery space. And I had, I don't know, probably $180,000 worth of originals and hand-embellished giclées and giclées there. And when the day came for the show, it was a huge audience, and they had these speeches. There was MPs there, provincial MPPs there, city councillors, people within the Chinese community, all up speaking, welcoming the big crowd. And this was also like a big kind of a unique thing, because I was the first non-Asian artist ever to have a solo show in that gallery. But I realized pretty quickly that this show was not going to be what I was hoping for. Because for me, I'm in business to sell my work. I was looking for this to be an opportunity to sell a lot of my work. It was really clear at the opening that this was not being promoted as a show and sale of work like in a commercial gallery. This was being promoted like a museum show. And so while it was really well attended, people were coming there with the same sort of mindset that you would have if you were going to the Art Gallery of Ontario, or if you were going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. You go there with the idea of looking at the artwork and then meeting the artist, but you don't go there with the idea or the intent of buying work. And it was pretty clear to me at the opening day that that was how this was being promoted, and that was the mindset of people coming in. And so I really quickly realized that probably this is not going to be a commercial success. And even then, the option is like, well, what do I do? And so I just realized, well, okay, this is, again, you win some, you lose some. This is not what I kind of thought I'd signed up for, but it is what it is. So I just made it my purpose while I was there to be as engaging as possible with all of the people that came in, and to enhance that experience for them as much as possible, and enjoy the fact for me that this was probably the best presentation of my work that I had ever seen in a gallery space. And just kind of, it's like, okay, move on to the next thing. And I had my studio open house coming up like 5 or 6 weeks later. So it was like, while I was there at the show, and again, doing everything I could to interact with people and make it a more positive experience for them, I was already thinking about the next thing that I was doing of a commercial nature. And at the end of the show, we ended up doing, I think, $2,500 in sales, one small original and a few framed paper prints. So in terms of as a commercial enterprise, this was a failure. But it's like, what did I learn from that? And the big thing I learned from that for me was, okay, going forward with any shows, I am going to take total charge of every aspect of it. I am not going to put all this work into it and leave the promotion aspect or any other aspect of the show up to someone else. And so it was like, and I also realized, okay, I'm not interested in doing any other joint ventures. So that's answered that question for me, and then just move on. Well, what ended up happening was literally within 2 weeks of that show, I had two private clients contact me that were interested in buying work and drop by. And one fellow ended up buying 4 paintings. The another person bought another big painting. So we did like 19,000 in sales out of the house in the 2 weeks after the show. And so again, I could have gotten all upset about the show not being what I wanted it to be, but that doesn't help anything. And all you can control is what's to the end of your fingertips. That's all you can control, is what you can do. And then you will either, whatever it is, whether it's an individual painting or whether it's some sort of venture or project you're doing, it will either succeed or fail. But all you can do is do everything that you can do. And that's the way I look at it. I don't look at the outcomes as a success or fail. I look at the process of me continuing to do everything that I can do to get myself in a position where success is possible. And knowing that some of them are going to be home runs, some of them are going to be strikeouts. And that over time, you're going to hit, the more at bats you take, the more home runs you have. Now, also, the more strikeouts you're going to have, and you just have to be willing to accept that. So for me, I have reached a point where I never ever place too much importance on any one painting, on any one venture or commercial enterprise or show that I have coming up. It's just, you try lots of stuff. Some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. But use the ones that don't work out to try and figure out, okay, what can I learn from this? And what can I change going forward? And it's amazing when you adopt that kind of mindset, the world opens up to you. And again, if you get up in front of people and fall flat on your face, that's only a problem if you are so invested in what other people think of you. But if you know risking falling flat on your face or striking out is a necessary risk to being able to get up and trying to hit a home run. So for me, I'd rather take the at-bats and risk the strikeouts than sit on the sidelines and dream of one day hitting a home run, but never, ever risking a strikeout. So that's my thoughts on that. I hope you found that helpful. And if you have, give me a thumbs up. I welcome your comments and questions. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I'm Tim Packer, and I thank you for your time.